Welcome to our live event today. The National Museum of Ireland celebrates the return of Outing the Past, the International Festival of LGBTI plus history. We have been joined by 15 cultural institutions over 24 days, 3 weeks, with 39 exciting events and one amazing all-Ireland-wide festival. Galleries, museums, libraries and archives across Ireland have been presenting Outing the Past 2022, an exciting celebration of events, talks, webinars, workshops, which began on March 18th, 2022 and will conclude on April 10th, 2022. And in just 4 short years, the important festival, which aims to provide a platform for previously overlooked LGBTI plus histories, has grown from a small grassroots event in Belfast to an island-wide celebration in 2022. From Dublin to Derry and Kilkenny to Mayo, this year's programme brings academics, activists and rich diversity of the LGBTI plus community together. Today, I would like to welcome our speaker. We're joined by Mark Etheridge, who is Curator of Industry and Transport at St Fagan's National Museum of History in Cardiff, and Mark is responsible for the LGBTQ plus history. The presentation will discuss the ongoing work with individuals and community groups to collect objects from the St Fagan's collection that represent contemporary LGBTQ plus experiences and events in Wales. So I will hand you over to Mark, who will begin his presentation.
That's great, thank you very much. And it's good to speak to everybody this afternoon. As mentioned, I'm Mark, and I'm a curator at St Fagan's National Museum of History, with responsibility for the LGBTQ plus history collection. So for those who might not know it, St Fagan's is part of a group of 7 museums and a collection centre run by Amgueddfa Cymru National Museum of Wales. It's on the outskirts of Cardiff and was opened to the public in 1947 as the Welsh Folk Museum. The intention being to create an open-air museum on the lines of places such as Skansen in Sweden. Today, following a £30 million redevelopment and being awarded the Art Fund Museum of the Year prize in 2019, St Fagan's is Wales's most visited heritage attraction. As well as 3 gallery spaces, it contains over 40 original buildings from all over Wales that have been moved and carefully re-erected. Since its opening, St Fagan's has not simply been about preserving the past, but to benefit the welfare of communities and to share their lived experiences. So the LGBTQ plus history collection at St Fagan's contains objects, documents, photographs and oral histories covering all areas of LGBTQ plus history, such as activism, equal rights, pride events, as well as items representing the everyday lives of LGBTQ plus people. Since becoming responsible for this collection in 2019, I've been working towards making it fully representative of all of our community. And this slide shows the range of items in the collection that together help tell the story of the LGBTQ plus community in Wales. So for this talk today, I want to highlight some of the contemporary collecting I've been doing and the importance of collecting this material now whilst it is available. It really struck me when looking to acquire older LGBTQ plus objects, how ephemeral some of these objects are and how difficult it is now to collect them. Therefore, contemporary collecting, I believe, is vital to make sure this material is preserved in places such as St Fagan's. Much of my contemporary collecting has been around working with various community groups across Wales. For example, in early 2019, I made contact with a group called Glitter Cymru. Glitter Cymru was founded in June 2016 by Vish, who was born in Cardiff of Indian descent. It is a social and support group for the LGBTQ plus ethnic minority community in Wales. The aim of the group is to provide a safe space and to empower its members to feel that their identities are valid and to be heard, seen and celebrated. Their first banner was made in 2018 and carried at Pride marches to highlight the visibility of LGBTQ plus ethnic minority people in Wales. It was also used at the first Welsh BAME Pride, which had been organised by Glitter in August 2019 at Cateys in Cardiff, as well as being hung on the door during Glitter Cymru's monthly meetups. And on the slide here, you can see the banner that is now in the collection at St Fagan's. I'd like to mention here too that St Fagan's has a large oral history archive. And so as part of my work, I'm also building up LGBTQ+ related oral history recordings. This enables the importance of objects such as the glitter banner to be told through the actual words of people involved with those objects and the groups. Therefore, when working with glitter members, as well as collecting objects, I also recorded some of their diverse experiences. And this quote is from Glitter's founder about why they created Glitter Cymru. If you don't see yourself in the community or on TV, you're like, am I the only one? And this one is from a member talking about the importance of the first BAME Pride in Wales, where the museum collected digital flyers and photographs. And they said, everyone on stage was BAME LGBT. And I think that is very powerful in itself, because we don't really get that platform. I worked with a number of individual members of Glitter Cymru to record their personal stories and experiences, also working with them to collect objects from them for the collection. This slide shows Numair, who was born in Pakistan and claimed asylum in Wales. The photograph is taken at the first Barry Pride that was held in 2019 and shows the rainbow flag that he's wearing as a cape. Numair then donated this flag, as well as a poem he wrote for the first BAME Pride about his experiences as a gay man in Pakistan. And this slide shows Rahim, an asylum seeker from Morocco, dancing at the Big Queer Picnic in Cardiff in 2019. He's wearing the red belly dancing outfit that he later donated to St Fagan's. Rahim selected this outfit to donate to the collection as it meant so much to him as a queer man from Morocco. And in the oral history recording I did with him, he explains the importance of this outfit to him. When working with people, I asked them to think about what they would like to see in the collection to represent their story. And this was an object, and this could be any object donated that has a special personal connection to them, but also one that I hope will resonate with other members of the community. So as well as glitter, another group whose members I've been working with recently is Transaid Cymru. Transaid Cymru is a non-hierarchical organisation made up of trans, intersex and non-binary people with mutual aid at the core of what they do. And the placard on the slide here was used at the Gender Recognition Act protest outside Cardiff Castle on the 15th of June 2020, and then at the second GRA protest held on the 21st of September 2020 outside the Senedd, that's the Welsh Parliament. As a result of the first protest, a group of people came together and founded what is now known as Transaid Cymru. And we also collected a number of badges and stickers for the collection to represent this group. So in the collection, we do have a small number of older historic objects from the 1970s and 80s, relating to things such as the Gay Liberation Front, the campaign for homosexual equality, and protests around Section 28. However, as we all know, campaigns for equal rights are still very much ongoing. And we need to make sure we keep up to date at St Fagan's and collecting objects around these changes. There have been some recent high-profile events in Wales that have led to improved equal rights for our community. For example, restrictions set by the UK Advisory Committee on the Safety of Blood, Tissues and Organs previously prevented gay and bisexual men from donating blood. And this poster, you can see on the slide here, is from a late 20th century campaign led by the National Union of Students against discriminatory blood donations. After many years of campaigning and various changes to restrictions, good news came on the 14th of December 2020, when it was announced by the Welsh Government that the ban and some restrictions would be lifted, a big step towards full equality in this area. So on this slide here, on the left, you can see a Welsh Blood Service information sheet that highlights the new rules on gay and bisexual men donating blood. And these came into force on the 14th of June 2021. These leaflets are given to everyone donating blood to read before they donate blood. And on the right of the slide here, you can see one of the first gay men to donate blood on the first day when these new rules were introduced. Most recently, I've collected some objects around the Church in Wales bill that was proposed in September 2021, and that would allow same-sex couples to have their civil partnerships or marriages blessed in church by the Anglican Church in Wales. And on the screen here, you can see a handwritten speech by the Right Reverend June Osborne, Bishop of Llandaff, that she gave at the meeting of the governing body of the Church in Wales that was held at the International Convention Centre in Newport on the 6th of September 2021. This bill was passed at this meeting, and on the slide here you can see a report, a memorandum relating to the bill that we also collected for the museum at the same time. And here we can see an order of service for a service of blessing between Lee and Fabiano at St Colin's Church, Llangollen, the 13th of November 2021. So Father Lee and his partner Fabiano are believed to be the first same-sex couple to be officially blessed by the Church in Wales. Father Lee compiled the liturgy himself, using the resources available from the new Church in Wales authorised liturgy of blessings for same-sex couples. And then the readings, poems and hymns were chosen between them. So together with the speech, the report memorandum, and then the order of service, they form a nice suite of objects that show the bill, its passing, and then the first blessing. Recently, it has been very noticeable that across Wales there have been quite a few new LGBTQ+ related businesses, events and groups popping up. And I'm looking to collect from as many of these as possible. And this slide shows a poster, badge and photograph relating to the Queer Emporium. The Queer Emporium opened in the Royal Arcade, Cardiff in June 2021. And it's initially as a pop-up for Pride Month in June. It is believed to be the first Queer Emporium in the UK and probably the world. And it features 15 LGBTQ+ independent businesses, encouraging the community to shop queer during Pride Month. It's now has become a permanent shop, and importantly, it's become a really important new venue for queer people to meet, as it has a cafe and holds evening events throughout the year. And I feel it is also a very much needed alternative to the traditional bars and clubs in Cardiff. So now I'd like to move on to discuss some of the objects relating to Pride events. Pride events in Wales that I've recently collected. Pride events, again, as we all know, are an important part of the LGBTQ plus calendar. And each year there are various small and larger Pride events held throughout Wales. These events usually consist of a parade, music and other events that celebrate and give visibility to the LGBTQ plus community, with people from all over Wales coming together to participate. I feel that contemporary collecting in this area is also vitally important. And so I've concentrated on collecting from these, as there have been a recent expansion of Pride events throughout Wales, and therefore many first Prides. These first Prides included Major Pride, which was the Vale of Glamorgan's first ever Pride event held in Llantwit Major, and that was held in September 2018. The first Welsh Bame Pride, organised by Glitter Cymru, that was held in August 2019, as well as the first Barry Pride held in September 2019, amongst a number of others. And on the screen here are flyers collected from the first Llantwit Major Pride and the first Bame Pride. Pride events during 2020 were of course very different due to COVID-19. Some were cancelled, while many others were held as virtual prides. These included Aberration Pride for the LGBTQ plus community of Mid Wales, which was held in July, a Wales-wide virtual Pride that took place on the 24th and 25th of July, where community groups and individuals from across Wales contributed. And Glitter Cymru also held a virtual Pride in August. The largest Pride event in Wales, Pride Cymru, that usually takes place in Cardiff over the late August bank holiday weekend, held instead a virtual big week from the 24th to the 30th of August, where the museum's involvement included a queer virtual tour of the art and history and archaeology collections. The move to hold in virtual online Pride events in 2020 meant that we had to adapt our methods of collecting. As there were few physical objects for you to collect, we had to switch to the digital, collecting some of the videos and digital marketing for the National Collection. I worked with LGBTQ Emri from the outset to make sure that the entire programme of the first Wales-wide virtual Pride was collected, and it's now preserved in the archive at St Fagan's as a permanent record of this important event. And the digital flyers you can see here are from the Wales-wide virtual Pride and Glitter Cymru's virtual Pride. And this slide here shows some of the digital marketing from from Pride Cymru's virtual Big Week, where we also collected some audiovisual material that was broadcast throughout the week. I think these virtual Prides are important as they really show how Wales's LGBTQ plus community responded and adapted to the COVID-19 crisis. It wasn't easy for many of these organisations to decide whether to cancel events in very uncertain times, then trying to put together online content where most are run mainly by volunteers. This is a flyer from what would have been the first Powys Pride. This was due to be held on the 27th of June 2020, but was cancelled because of the pandemic. And this year we'll again see some first Pride events happening in Wales. The cancelled Powys Pride will now hold its first Pride event on the 16th of July this year in Llandrindod, Wales. There will also be the first Hay on Wye Pride. Both these are important Pride events for small rural towns and bring together the LGBTQ community in these areas. You can probably see from many of the objects included in this talk that because of the ephemeral nature of documents, contemporary collecting is vitally important. If we don't collect them when first produced, they can be very difficult to get hold of in the future, especially if we want to collect the personal stories that go with them. Flyers such as these are usually just thrown away after the event. But it is important now that these objects start to be, I'm just talking now about the collection as a whole, is important now that the LGBTQ objects we have collected over the last few years start to be used in displays, exhibitions and events. So we have a few things planned this year that will see the collection being used in different and hopefully less traditional ways as well. From mid-March, some of the objects from the LGBTQ collection went on display at the National Waterfront Museum in Swansea as part of the exhibition Traws Newid. This is part of a project for LGBTQ plus young people aged between 16 and 25 that explores queer and gender non-conforming figures in Welsh history and supports participants to create contemporary works inspired by their own experiences. This exhibition is still currently on display, and we hope at the end to look at adding some of the artists' works to the collection, as these works were based on their personal experiences as young queer people living in Wales today. And on the slide here, you can see the Lesbians and Gays Support the Miners banner. That's part of the collection of Amgueddfa Cymru. And this was made for the 2014 film Pride, which I'm sure many of you have seen, a film that shows the support for the striking South Wales miners by Lesbians and Gay Men Support the Miners. So this banner is displayed alongside a contemporary banner made for the exhibition. And on this next slide, you can see a collection of T-shirts from the collection at St Fagan's that are displayed on contemporary artworks, also created for the exhibition. And also within the exhibition space, there are contemporary T-shirts made by the artists as well. In June 2020, we will be opening a temporary exhibition at St Fagan's that will be based around the themes of protest and pride. And this will include some of the contemporary objects I've talked about today. This will enable us to get some of these objects out on display to show the collecting work that is happening, and importantly, show that St Fagan's is not just collecting LGBT history, but the lives and experiences of everyone living in Wales today. Finally, all of these objects can be searched and viewed on the museum's collections online catalogue, and you can find a link to this catalogue on the main Amgueddfa Cymru National Museum Wales website. You can just follow the link to that site, type in LGBTQ+, and you can see the range of collections we have there then. I have made sure that all the objects I've collected have been digitised and made available on the catalogue where I can. So it's now an important resource and gives permanent visibility to our community. I hope you'll take a look at this collection after this talk to see more objects and histories. The collection is constantly being added to, so keep looking back to see what might have been added. So many thanks for listening today. If you want to follow my collecting work and hear more about the objects in the collection, please follow me on Twitter and also St Fagan's social media. And please do get in touch with me via email if you want to know more about the collection or have any objects you'd like to donate to the LGBTQ collection at St Fagan's. Thank you.
Thanks so much for that, Mark. And just to say to anyone tuning in today, if you would like to ask a question, you can drop your question into the chat box right now. Mark, I actually have a question for you from the talk. Obviously, you spoke about the importance of communities coming together and collecting this content. What kind of advice, or what can the general population or the day-to-day kind of individual do to assist in kind of collecting this type of material, whether it's in Wales or in Ireland or Dublin? What can people do to kind of assist in that kind of contemporary collecting?
Yeah. I think what we need to remember really with contemporary collecting and collecting generally, I think I sort of touched on about the ephemeral nature of some of these objects. And I think what's important to remember is that any object can represent an LGBTQ plus story or experience. And when I've been talking to groups and people, people will quite often, they'll say, I haven't got anything that's worthy of putting in a museum and things like that. And, I do, the objects are there really to represent the experiences of LGBTQ plus people. So I think that's one of the things to remember, is the fact that many objects can be important for being offered to museums. And I think I'm also a founder of a research group based in Wales, where we're encouraging people to come forward with objects and archival material to offer to museums across Wales, because I think it's really important that it is really important that these objects are in museums, as without the representation in museums, we can't do displays. And it's been noticeable how, as I built up the collection over the last couple of years, how we're now in a much better position to be able to do displays and exhibitions like the Traws Newid one, where we've got better representation within the collections.
Yeah, definitely. I think you're right in saying that, and people can see those collections on display, and some may feel like, oh, my object isn't necessarily as important or maybe museum worthy, but when they see these kind of everyday objects and how much importance they hold, whether it's a letter or a photograph or something like that, it is very, very important to kind of have that display on in a museum as well. And you mentioned as well, in terms of the virtual aspect, obviously we've all been very, very dependent on online events, virtual events. We hosted Out in the Past completely virtual online as well. Do you think, I suppose, our recent kind of strong dependence on virtual events and online events has had a very positive effect in capturing this LGBT material? So, for instance, the talk that we're doing now, it's live at the moment, but we'll have it as a recorded event that will be there forever for us to kind of look back on. Do you think it's been a very positive aspect in that respect, to kind of collect all that material?
Yeah, I think it does, because St Fagan's is part of Amgueddfa Cymru, the National Museum Wales. So we have sites across Wales, but holding virtual events, having things like our collections online website where our collections are available online, all helps to show that these are collections being held for everybody within Wales and beyond. So if people can't come to places like St Fagan's to see the objects on display, then holding events like this, being able to see the whole of the collection online, shows that there's importance, that the objects themselves are important. And I think also, as you mentioned about this sort of talk, I think these sorts of talks give even greater profile to the collection and the importance of holding these objects, because as we all know, with museums can only ever display a small number of the objects we hold. So online content such as our online catalogue, these sorts of events which we can highlight collections we have in museums, all help to to give greater visibility and show them. I think the important thing is showing the importance of these objects, preserving these objects and the stories that they tell.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a really important role of the museum in that way. And do you think, or how do you think kind of museums can kind of find new ways, I suppose, to assist in this kind of display of objects, or to assist the local communities moving forward to collect this material? Is there any kind of advice you would give to general museums?
Yeah, well, I think what I've been really impressed with recently is the Traws Newid exhibition I mentioned, which has been some of the work the Amgueddfa Cymru is doing at the moment, is working with a lot of young people. We have youth engagement facilitators who work with young people to help to bring their experiences and their interests broader within the museum. And I think what I found really interesting with Traws Newid was how the group looked through the online catalogue, and they looked at some of the objects within the collection, and then they took inspiration from that to create all the artworks for the exhibition. So I think we need to see objects not just as being of interest in their own right as part of a more traditional display, but we also need to look at these objects as ways of creating different museum content and doing things differently. Another one I didn't mention recently was we had a composer, Gareth Churchill, who looked at the LGBTQ plus collection, and he created a musical piece for song and piano inspired by the collection that sort of gave musical voice to the LGBTQ collection. So again, there was no display around that. It was just using the collection in different ways, and again, give them greater visibility to the collection and the stories that they tell.
Okay, excellent. Well, I think we're going to leave it there, but thanks so much, Mark, for joining us today. I really, really appreciate it. And as I mentioned earlier, this talk will be available forever, essentially, on the museum YouTube channel to look back on. So definitely do have a look back on the talk. And again, thanks so much, Mark, for joining us. Really, really appreciate it, and really, really interesting content, and great to hear what our colleagues in Wales are doing as well.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much. Really enjoyed it.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thanks. Bye.